everyone for joining us at Life and In Between, our podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I am so excited that today I have this fabulous, phenomenal human being, woman, power. Like when I think of the word power, I think of Courtney. So, Courtney, I'm going to tell you a little background story. I met Courtney. Okay, I'm going to tell you how I met Courtney. For you guys that know, when I started the podcast, I hated TikTok. I did not like TikTok at all. TikTok was like my enemy. But because I have to start, spreading the word of Life and In Between, I became familiar with TikTok. And in one of those nights of like getting familiar and educating myself, I went into a live. And long and behold, it was Courtney. Courtney was hosting a live. And I was I sat there and I listened through the whole live. But I don't want to take away the whole story. I'm going to kind of have Courtney introduce herself, talk a little about herself, kind of, give us some of her flavor. And then we're going to have a nice conversation about social media, about Courtney, about me, and we're just going to have a lot of fun. So if everyone, please give me a round of applause. Courtney. Hello, Courtney.
Hi, how are you? So I remember that you came in on one of the lives we were talking about immigration and government politics actually. And it was actually a wild night, to be honest. Um, but a lot of the lives that I do typically go with, politics or just all around problems that we're having in communities and in statewide. So I get a lot of people in there and they all have different opinions, all different point of views, and I really don't mind any of them. I like to be educated. I like the information on them. So we bring a lot of that to the table. But
I
typically it's really fun at the end of the night.
I did see that because I remember because for those that I'm assuming that a lot of people use TikTok, but for those that are not familiar with the TikTok platform, um, you have like videos, but then you also have lives. And so as you scroll through, you begin to see all these lives. And I was going through kind of discovering and exploring. I was just seeing a lot of shouting, people just talking, and I'm not about that. I like positivity. I like to be stimulated intellectually. But when I went into Courtney's room, I went in there, and one of the things that I really truly admired was the way that you controlled the room, that there was a respect level that but however, you weren't muting people, you were allowing people to express their voice. You gave people the platform, but you had your limits. You had boundaries where don't be disrespectful, respect other people's point of views. We'll listen to yours, and let's have an open dialogue. And that I loved. And so from then I was like cooked. I said, oh, she got me. Courtney got me at this point. Like I'm becoming a follower, and I did. I started following. Now, let me ask you, Courtney, if you don't mind, because there are a
Yeah.
lot of people out there that are wondering, how do I start a live, or what? I mean, what was? Tell me, what was the inspiration? What made you go on TikTok and do this?
So we actually had a group prior to my lives. We were in Queenie's group. We were in her live. She hasn't done lives very much. And ever since then, we've kind of, grown distance between our group and hers. However, like that's where it started. We were having a lovely conversation. We were being, all around respectful as much as possible. You get heated in conversations, things do happen. And like we ended up forming a whole group of friends that we just didn't know we were going to end up being friends. And so when we got out of Queenie's live, she had cut and did like kind of like a mental health um time off kind of thing.
Okay.
And it ended up, our whole group was like, hey, we need to do more lives. Like I love inspiring people. I love enlightenment and stuff like that. And I decided, okay, let's do it then. when you go onto TikTok and you do like a regular post, like you just click the little plus button, you can scroll all the way over and you can hit live. Now, in order to do lives, it takes about 3 days so they can verify that you are who you say you are. Um, so it took me 3 days to be able to allow panelists to be on my live and everything. Once that got started, our group had like two or three other people start their live. And they were like, at this point, this is our safe space. And I
Mhm.
have so many people come into my live, and when they hear like disrespectful comments, or they hear other people's point of views, and they're like, oh no, you're going to attack me. My moderators or the people that are in my group automatically say that's not how Courtney runs her lives at all. Courtney
Mhm.
will not sit here and judge anything you say. She'll give you, if you say something misinformed or whatever, she will tell you that that's misinformation. Here's where you can find it. She, but usually I'm very open minded. I typically don't get disrespectful unless the energy that's brought to me is disrespectful. And that there is like my draw off point. I'm like, okay, no, we're done. We're done with this conversation. It's going nowhere. I've had plenty of conversations with a lot of people who, my friend group don't agree with. And I'll be like, but listen to what he's saying before you judge it. Listen to it. Um, and it typically ends up being a lot. I won't lie. To host a live, you have to be very patient. You have to make sure that your emotions are in check before you start that live, because a lot of things that people say can get to you. Your mental health is very important.
Mhm.
So if you're not fully aware of like how people are going to be like towards you, then I don't suggest that you go straight into running lives. Go to a couple of panels, see how it feels, see if you're inspired by it, see if you could create a live that nobody else is doing. And that's exactly why, we as a group were like, you've got to start one. Because so that way, they know I'm patient. They know I'm very calm. I'm very, heartfelt, but I'm also very educated and very informed of certain situations. So I mean, that's where we get to,
I did see that, and that was one of the things that I noticed on your lives that you always remain calm, like you always and there are and I noticed that they may be some triggers, but that you're able to hold yourself intact versus someone else would just be going off and you don't do that, and which I admire that. I'm like, wow. So you're absolutely right. I mean, to start a live, you have to really be emotionally prepared for trollers, the people that come and troll and attack you, and that will just try to find a way to just push your buttons and just to cause chaos on and you can, and I think I've been on a couple lives and I've jumped to other groups where conversation is really great and it just takes that one person to stir the pot,
yeah.
and suddenly it's like what was a conversation, it becomes very steamy and agitated. People get agitated and get angry. um so let me ask you this, in regards to TikTok, is that the only place like you do lives, or do you do other lives in other places? And if you just do it on TikTok, what made you decide to just stick to TikTok?
So I have done lives on Facebook. I have done lives on Instagram as well. The viewer content on those though, typically are not as high or outreaching, um, as much as TikTok is. TikTok has where, a lot of people, depending on what standpoint you're on. And I mean, I have people from all the way across the world. Whereas like Facebook, if I'm doing a live, all I have is either my community or my friends list, stuff like that. Now on Instagram, it typically is only the people following you that has come into those, unless they're sharing it out and stuff like that. And not a lot of people do that. So I kind of just stuck with TikTok because of how many people you can reach out to and have conversations with.
Yes, yeah. Like yeah, because I think the other day on one of your lives you had there was a lady I think from Syria. She was from Syria.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've had different people from all across the world on there, and the fact that they just love to have that conversation and just be open and everything, and I really love that. So how long, if you don't mind me asking, how long have you been doing this?
So I got into doing the lives on TikTok back in November. Um, I would say that I got into like political lives for like all of what's going on and like, enlightenment lives on Facebook about 2 years ago.
Okay.
However, it's been more of an outreach with TikTok than it was Facebook.
Okay. I love that. Okay. So you've been doing this. So, like for example, if you have let's say the advice, what advice would you give to somebody that's just like, okay, I'm gonna open my TikTok account. I want to do this live. What are the do's and don'ts, like, that you can give?
I can give you like if you're starting it, are you just to clarify, just to start a live
Just
itself,
yeah,
like
yeah, someone that's just starting, they're getting into TikTok for the first time, because we have listeners here, we have different age demographics, and the thing is, our listeners, what we try to do, Patrick and I, and unfortunately Patrick couldn't be with us today, but what we try to do is encourage people, um, because right now the world is going through a very tough time. Like we're going
it
through the world is just hurting. People are in pain, and people are trying to find different outlets. And now TikTok has a double-edged sword. You can go into the areas where it can be very toxic and fuel that, or you can go to areas that I've noticed that have a lot of positivity and all that. So for a person that's sitting at home and saying, you know what, I kind of want to meet different people, kind of engage with community in a different level, talk to somebody on the other side. Uh, what would you recommend, like the do's and don'ts? They're just starting off brand new.
so I would recommend that you check all like for those of them that don't know, you can put up a prompt on your screen. Like make sure that your outreach is something that somebody can understand because you have a lot of people that come into your live and want to know what you want to talk about. What's the subject? Like what can we go from here kind of thing. And a lot of people tend to be trollers. You can actually, click on the profile that's either commenting or requesting up and see if you're friends with them, see if, they've created this new account. Now, a lot of people that I'm not saying all of them, a lot of people that don't have bios and like one or two followers, they tend to try and take your lives down. Um, so you have to keep a close eye on that. However, like starting off with your lives, you want to share it to friends, family, anybody that you can actually share it to, if it even if it's your entire feed, like your entire followers or who you're following. Um, it tends to bump up the numbers a lot more, and for them to share it as well, it you get new people, you get their friends or those people who are following them, and it just tends to, then bump up your numbers and you get more ideas from those people. Believe it or not, there are a lot of people that have sent me, pictures and stuff and be like, hey, this is a great subject right now. Do you mind if we talk about this? And I'm like, not at all. Like we can have this conversation, we can go about it. And as soon as you start doing those kind of pictures and those kind of prompts, um, people tend to flow in with that kind of crowd,
Mhm.
and then your live goes more viral. Now, I will tell you that there's a lot of restrictions and policies on lives on TikTok. You have to be willing to read those guidelines and policies and stuff because it will typically um, be hard for you when you're doing a live. It can knock down your live, it can ban you, it can ban other people's profiles depending on the live subject or who's in it speaking, if they're doing harassment, bullying, discrimination, anything like that. It even if it sounds like it, they can get it taken down. So just like make sure you're reading the information and making sure that you're understanding fully before you go into being a live creator for TikTok.
That's good to know. So so there are things that flag the account, and so you just have to keep mindful. How do you um kind of have control of that? Like, I mean, I know there's certain words you can't say. Like you have to be very careful in words that you can't say. And so um when does it, like if you say it, I mean, like, are they like striking points? I don't know this part. So you're now educating me like on something new, and I'm sure that my listeners are like wondering. So I mean, like, so let's say somebody says the I know like you can't say which I think I said on one of your lives, I said genocide. And you're like, they're always like, you can't say that. And I'm like, oh, like, so I think that's what yeah, because I said, yeah, we were talking about, I said mass genocide. And so what happens to you, or what happens to me, or what, like, I mean, like, what's the next step? I don't know. Like,
So it usually will flag the live. Now if it flags the live, it'll give you a warning. Basically, it gives you, hey, you got 10 minutes off the For You page, or it tells you 10 minutes and this person has to be taken off your panel for 10 minutes in order to stay on the For You page. Now, I will tell you that depending on the words that you use, how many times you use them, in just one breath. I've had one guy get on there and he was just like, he pretty much was stating kill all the immigrants, like all the brown people need to go. There's no reason for them to be here. They're all, and I'm not gonna say that word.
right.
And I was like, no, you can't say all those words. And as soon as I said it, it flagged me. So I had to drop him. It gets you for bullying and harassment.
Mhm.
I ended up having to drop him. If your account gets reported, just your account, like not the people in it in your live, but the host is like by themselves. If it flags you more than I want to say 3 times, it it'll pop up. It'll say harassment and bullying is against community guidelines. I'm just using this one as an example. And it'll tell you to appeal or to see terms. If you hit appeal and you go in, and it'll give you a list of things like this doesn't coordinate with my live. It does. This isn't what it's about. Like, okay, this is a fair restriction, stuff like that. And you click whichever one it is. Now it takes about 2 minutes for this appeal to go through. Sometimes longer than that. And depending on them reviewing it, if it's being taken down or if it's been appealed and approved. But usually, if you appeal it, it does get approved depending on the terms. If you've dropped the person from the panel that was creating the argument or the harassment,
Right.
then normally it will appeal on its own. If you don't, it will tell you like, okay, well, you have like one or two more warnings before we shut down the live. So it typically really has to do with who is being flagged and reported.
Okay. I see, I see, I see. You mentioned, and thank you. I mean, like you're right now educating me and many listeners out there. You said something that they're trolls. That I wanted to circle back on something you said that trolls come into your they go into your live to try to take you down. And
Mhm.
so when you so is it like when you say take me down, is it like a few minutes that your live gets shut down, or is it like it's cut for like a couple of days, or you're permanently banned, or like how does that work? I mean,
It really just depends on the report itself. So, take for example, if someone comes up because we had somebody do it on one of my friends' lives, dude was it came up on the panel, was being, absolutely disgusting with words, we'll put it that way.
mhm.
And he then turned on his camera and showed his butt. And it took down our friend's live for 14 days. So yeah, it's pretty awful. A lot of people depending on what you got, really, honestly, it really just depends. I've noticed the more followers you get though, the less you have issues with getting your live banned. Um, I've also noticed that, certain degrees. It's basically like one of my other friends. She was on there and literally it was my fault that she got banned. I'm not even gonna lie. I stuck out my tongue at her and I was basically like ha 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 kind of thing and it banned her for 3 days. And I was like, my tongue, how is my tongue nudity? Like, how, what? And so we had a discussion about it and everything, and I apologized to her. She's like, girl, that's funny for being banned for just that.
Right.
She she really laughed about it, honestly.
Okay, yeah. So how many days was she banned for?
She was only banned for 3.
Oh, 3 days. Okay, so it's not too bad. Like not like 14 days and all that. Okay. Wow, okay. So, oh, this is really interesting stuff that I'm learning. I also wanted to ask you a question. Like I know that because I've seen there are people that go into TikTok, right? And I see them
Mhm.
for like 14, 15, 16 hours straight. Like I mean nonstop. Like they're like on a marathon kind of thing. I guess they may be the one that's their job or something, or but how for a person that wants to juggle and manage, what recommendations? I know you mentioned you had moderators. I know that would be one recommendation, but what recommendations can a person do, like if they want to host, lives, and how do they manage to do like 14, 15 hours? I or I don't know. It's like,
I have hosted my longest live that I have hosted was 17 hours.
whoa, okay, so tell me, how did you do that? Oh my gosh.
So, being engaged in the conversation kind of is the reason that I didn't end my live. I had a lot of moderators in there. We took shifts basically.
Mhm.
So I had about 2 or 3 moderators in there to begin with. And then when they had to, do everything that they needed to do and I was busy, I had 2 or 3 others switch out with them. And it was it was like we were rotating. The conversation was too good to end. We were actually talking about how to, basically help with everything that's going on between the homeless and the environmental problems that we've got going on. And we spit out a couple of politics for a couple of hours as well about the presidency and the administration and stuff like that. So it was really engaging and it kind of had sucked me in to that conversation. I will tell any future live creator that wants to become, you know, uh, a TikTok famous person to run lives. I will tell you, it does get exhausting. It will suck you in, and time just goes by so quickly. and it tends to push some boundaries on your personal life. I had
Mhm.
to take a little bit of a step back because I was like, oh my goodness, like I am getting out of control with this.
Mhm.
And so that's the only reason like I run maybe 6 hours to maybe 8 hours now
Okay.
of a live because it tends to be very drawn in when you get a good conversation going. And so it doesn't always end up, being very healthy for you. Sometimes, I've had live creators message me and go, "I forgot to eat today." And I have a major headache. Or there's been some that completely forget to, use the bathroom or, actually get off the phone for a couple of minutes and do what they should have been doing. And it it's very it,
It's
it's
addictive. It sounds
very
like it's very addictive.
yeah, it's very addictive. I established some kind of boundary for myself.
Mhm.
Um, if I feel like I am getting way too deep into a conversation, I'll be like, "Hey, I got a 10-100, which is basically take a break." And my moderators are like, "Okay, got you." So I'll set down my phone and walk away from it. I, make sure I eat something, make sure I'm getting hydrated, do anything I have to do. And then, I'll come back and the conversation's still going. So, I mean, for people that want to do lives, walking away from your phone isn't always a bad thing as long as you have someone else there to help you moderate those things. I will tell you though that you want a moderator on both sides, like one that disagrees and one that agrees. Because if both of them are moderating, both of them are going to have a panel that is half and half, and they're not just going to keep kicking people or muting people unless they're being disrespectful.
I love that. So these are really great pointers. I have a question. I was introduced to something like, was it 2 days, 2 nights ago, I think it was, or I don't know, that I saw, and I didn't know what it was. It was called a battle. And
Yeah.
tell me about these battles.
So you have a battle game point. Um, Now, I've only been in one battle. I will tell you right now, I've only been in one battle.
Okay.
So I don't typically do them. Um, it I don't think what people don't realize is that, you're not just gifting the panelists, you're also gifting the host. So when you're sending the panelists in those game sessions, a let's just say like a 2,000 coin prize, like a gift, a third percent of that goes to the host. Like they don't get the whole gift themselves. And that's part of the reason I don't do games. Um, I typically just run the panels as is because when I want you to gift the panelists, or if you're going to gift me, which I don't typically ask for those things. Now the panelists, if you're coming in and you want to gift them, I encourage it very much.
Mhm.
Um, and when they get gifted, none of it goes to me. So I typically will be like, hey, gift our panelists, like, share, follow. If you're wanting to be engaged in the conversation, request up. But a lot of the game ones typically have to do with like the left or the right kind of situation, not on politics, but just in, someone could agree about being homeschooled and the other person agree about public school.
Okay.
And people vote on which one's better.
Okay.
And I've seen ones where it's like who's prettier in the panel and who would you take out on a date kind of thing. And I'm like, I can't. There are some days I'm like, oh my God, where is this coming from?
Right. Right.
um, the funniest one that I've ever seen for a game host, game panel actually would have been is grape flavor better than the fruit punch flavor. And I was sitting there watching these people go back and forth about flavors. And I was like,
Okay.
okay, we've gotten here now.
Wow, okay. And just so you battle coins and so so if you lose, does that come out of like your money and you have to pay, or how does that go? Like,
So if you lose, you don't all you do is it's basically like take for example, um you have like the queen and king game battle. One, there's always somebody either crown queen or king during the in the panel. The last two that are on there, they people start voting for the who to like drop off that panel between the last two that got the lowest points. And normally they still keep all their points and stuff like that, no matter how many they had. And they typically just drop. You give them about 10 minutes, let another person come up for about 10 minutes, and then if they want back up, you do it again. But everybody in the panel keeps their gift money and stuff like that, no matter if they lose or if they don't. I have noticed that when you're, gifted by somebody and, they get disrespectful or something like that, and you go to block them, you lose their gifts.
oh,
Um, yeah, it's weird because we had someone on my friend's live gift him, came up to the panel, was shouting the N word, we put it that way.
okay. Okay.
Um, and as soon as we blocked him, our host was like, "Hey, I lost points. How did I lose points?" And I'm like, "It's probably because we blocked him."
Right.
I'm not sure if that's how it goes for every live. I've never had it done on mine. Um, so I wouldn't really be able to tell you if that's an actual thing. But now I do believe him because he was furious. He's like, "Why'd y'all gotta block him and make me lose my point?" It was funny. We were laughing. But yeah, it tends to be a lot when it comes to TikTok.
I mean, there's a lot a learning there. So I'm gonna ask the $1 million question because it's questions that people ask me, and I'm not even there at that level. And
Okay.
you know where I'm going, right? Monetization. How do you make money on these platforms in TikTok? I know that there's been a shift. TikTok went through a shift because
Yeah, it did.
I heard I was talking to some content creators and shockingly, and legit, not fake ones, that they were telling me that they were bringing like about typically about 3 grand a month, 3, 4 grand. And there's some that make a lot more, and they're like, what I'm making is nothing. And I'm like, oh, okay, wow. But then suddenly the shift happened. I don't know, like it just happened. But I think the $1 million question is, how are people able to monetize? I know there's a couple of different ways that you can monetize on TikTok. Can you fill us in on that, if you don't mind, or if it's
No.
okay. You can table it if you want to table it. We can table that question.
Well, honestly, I made a lot more money when the lives first started on TikTok.
Okay.
Um, Now it's gotten to if you're a small creator coming up, of course it's going to take a bit to create some of that money. Um, and with a lot of situations for those TikTok creators, it just it tends to be a bit much because a lot of creators get a taste of that money once it starts going up, and ooh, excuse me, they tend to run with it. And I had something go in my eye.
Okay.
Oh, little bug went in my eye, Diana.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Restart. Um, but you can, okay, so when you start making the money itself, it usually comes from gifts. However, like, let's say they send you about 10 roses. That's 10 coins, 10 cents. You only make a third of that penny. You don't even make the whole penny.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So, yeah, so it's like that's the reason people are like, if you're going to gift, like gift the galaxy. If you're going, if you like the live, do this. And a lot of people don't understand about the gifting. And
Mm,
back then, if you were to gift, like 10 roses, it'd give you more than just third of a penny. Uh, but
right.
ever since they've updated all of this, it's kind of hard. That's the reason you don't see so many creators anymore. And it tends to be difficult to have these kind of platforms um, that you want to be outreach and you want to enlighten people, but people are just like, why do it if we're not getting paid for it?
Right.
And it shouldn't be. In some cases, I understand. Okay, I understand you wanting to get paid for something you're doing on a daily basis. But in other situations, if you're wanting to outreach to others and you're wanting to enlighten them and help in some kind of way that you can, then the money shouldn't be an issue. Even if it's $10 a week, it shouldn't be an issue for you. Um, Now I will tell you that some people do make their living on this. And, with everything, going on right now and with the policies changing and stuff like that, it tends to make a dent in their living. So, it really just depends on the platform itself.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Because yeah, I've noticed that um they're saying to move over to other platforms because they're paying more versus what, yeah, I have noticed that. But TikTok has something special. I think that different from the other, and it drives a different type of different individuals. It's a different type of group of people, you know?
Yeah.
And now again, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. If I ask a question that you don't want to answer, we'll always table it. You don't have to and all that. Is this like your full-time job, or do you have a like life outside of, TikTok, if you don't mind? Yeah, we could table that. I
I,
mean,
no, you're fine. I have a life outside of TikTok.
okay.
Um, I am on a leave right now. Our department has decided that basically, they wanted us working more than 60 hours a week. And I was already doing so much.
Mm,
And I was already putting in so much effort for the department. And I just couldn't handle it without, being home and focusing on other situations. And so I kind of was like, you know what, I'm gonna take leave. I'm gonna take leave. And my bosses were okay with it. They were like, okay, you know, have fun, enjoy some time off. You have an open seat if you want to be here. If you want to move departments, you're more than welcome to. Um, so it's been a lot here lately.
okay.
Um, I will tell you that, I ran lives um during the day, sometimes towards evening, right as my shift was ending. And I can tell you that, getting so sucked into almost working two jobs, because once you're off from work and you're sitting here talking to people, it can go on for hours. And it's like that best friend conversation. You can just go on for days with it. Um, I mean, I like TikTok. I really do. It inspires me to hear people, to hear their stories, hear, their personal life, what they have going outside of just social media in general.
Mhm.
Um, so it intrigues me a lot, and it reminds me that we still have a lot of good people here in the world.
That is very true. That is very true. Wow. Yeah, I love that. I know you mentioned the department, like if again, don't answer any questions like the fire department or CPS or like what department? Because department or don't answer that. I'll hold back. You don't need to answer that. Okay.
I can't release that
Okay,
part.
yeah. Okay, so we'll table that. That was like as soon as I saw your eye, I was like, okay, your eyes. I was like, okay, no, we're not gonna go there. Um, but there is something else I did want to ask. Now, aside from that, because I know you're talking about how you had to manage this full-time job and everything, but you also have family.
I do. I
Yeah,
do.
tell me about your family, because I one of the lives I heard one of you and your cuties, like it is your smallest and youngest.
Yes.
And it's so beautiful. And that was the one thing is that everyone in the live knew, oh, she's got to take care of her little one, and it was beautiful. I thought it was like everyone understood. They got it. So if you don't mind, would you like to share that part? And again, if you don't want to share that, like we don't have to. We can move on to another question.
Oh no, by all means. I typically have a full packed schedule. That little one is absolutely my whole world, but I also have three older kids, and they are very much keeping me on my toes. Um, so when that's part of the reason I needed to take leave from that. Not only that, but like everybody on my panel um hears my little one. They're like, "Oh, you gotta go do your responsibility," and I'm like, "Y'all are awful." Like, but they understand that I am a big part of like big part of my kid's life. Um, I have ended lives, and people are like, "Why'd you end the live?" I'm like, "You guys do realize that I'm still a parent. At the, like, I still have to focus on what needs to be focused on." The other night I actually ended a live, and one of the guys was like, "Hey, no, that's like not talking to me, but he was in the middle of a conversation, and I was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry." And he was like, "What's up?" I was like, "I have to end this live. My little ones are begging for a dance party right now, and I pinky promised them a dance party." And they were like, "Oh, no, you're good." I was like, "I'll be back on in like an hour, hour and a half, the latest, and then we can go back to the conversation at hand." And they were all for it. They all encouraged it. They normally don't say stuff towards a child. um you know I've had people I've had some really bad people talking about children, and I'm like, do not speak about those that don't have a voice. If they
Right.
can't have a voice for themselves, I will have a voice for them. And typically I don't allow children to be brought up in conversation
Mhm.
if you're being disrespectful about them.
Right.
But it tends to be a lot when it comes to my personal life. I'm always juggling. So at least my panelists and like my moderators and my group, they understand that if I have to get off, there is a reason why I have to get off.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a great conversation at the end of the day about mine.
I love that. I love that. And so, I mean, our listeners, didn't I say that she was a powerful woman? Look at this. She's juggling her work, full-time. I mean, children, having kids, it's 24/7. That never stops. It never ends. You don't have a break. And then you moderate, well, you host these panels that are enlightening and educating people. And it's always something positive. I've never seen you host anything negative. It's always something about educating and bringing awareness in a positive way. So that is wonderful. Now, I know that we're coming up at time, and I want to be mindful and respectful of your time and everything. Um, And thank you for sharing your journey, your story, and entrusting life and in between, and sharing that and educating, because this is all about educating. We're trying a different angle for listeners that want to go down this road. Now, before we go ahead and call it a night and everything, is there any inspiration, any life and in between moments of inspiration that you like to leave our listeners? Uh, Something
Well,
that
I
take,
can.
take away?
Oh, yeah, of course. Um, I would like to tell those that are listening and that this is going out to, that, always have a positive outlook on things. You know, come into a conversation and have a positive outlook, encourage people, you know, be able to be there for others, and like respect, it goes far for everybody. So just have a, you know, intelligent, like respectful, outgoing personality, and it will get you very far. And by all means, my lives are always open to anybody. So if anybody would like to join and just be inspired, or just come up and give their point of views and their opinions, and want to reach out to for anybody's help, they are more than welcome.
Wonderful. That's great. Now, for our listeners that would like to reach out and kind of find you on TikTok and kind of listen to those lives, where can they go? And I know that you have a pseudonym, on there. So do I, because when I go on, everyone calls me Life. They don't call me by my first name. So, what is yours, and how can our listeners reach you if they want to kind of jump in and learn more about your lives?
So, mine actually goes by Cloud. That's the name my adoptive parents gave me. So, so I've been going as Cloud since I can remember, and but they can search me up under Queen Cloud 97 on TikTok. That's the username. And anytime that, they see like a red, or, where it seems like I'm talking on my picture, they can just click it. It goes straight into my live. Um, I typically am either on other lives, or I'm typically on mine, but they're more than welcome to come in, hear anything they need to, give me ideas on what else we could talk about. That's not an issue at all.
I love that. Okay, so for our listeners out there, please go ahead, go and follow Cloud. Remember, go on TikTok and start listening, because she's got good content out there. I really love it. And also for our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. If you know someone that actually needs to hear this message, someone that actually wants to be more familiar with TikTok, or they want to start something, share this with them. Like this, comment, please include us and share it with everyone out there, because we want to just educate other people and get more followers as well. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us here at Life and In Between. It's been such a pleasure. I want to send love, peace to everyone out there. Thank you so much.